and thank you for joining us today. We'll just give it 2 more minutes for any joiners to get on the call before we get started. It's great to see some of our Matchday Live team in the chat. Okay, great. I think we'll get started then. So hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Maxine Douglas Morgan, and I run marketing for Matchday Live. For those of you that don't already know, Matchday Live is Manchester Met's sports broadcasting channel, which is student-led. So I'll be hosting today's talk on behalf of Matchday Live, and we'll be diving into discussion on women in sports media. So before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. I know, but very boring. But today's session will run for an hour, and towards the end of the hour, there'll be an opportunity for any questions from our audience. So please keep yourself on mute throughout the chat and jot down any questions you have or pop them in the chat, and we'll get through as many of them as possible through the time provided at the end. So why are we all here? I'm sure the majority of you know that tomorrow is International Women's Day, and this year's theme is Accelerate Action. So at Matchday Live, we are all about the action, and we focus on getting our students hands-on experience in technical and on-screen broadcasting roles. This year, we're super excited to be celebrating with 2 industry professionals from the world of sports media to talk all about their experiences, passions, and journeys through the industry. So the topics covered today will help anyone that's keen to pursue sports media accelerate their own action in their career path. So let's introduce our speakers. Firstly, we're joined by radio and TV broadcaster Natalie Pike, who has been the presenter for Manchester City's in-house media team since 2011, establishing herself as the Matchday Live programme lead, coincidentally where we share a name with our own project. She provides insight into the game by interviewing players and pundits and engaging with fans. Natalie has also been the co-presenter of Talking Balls on BBC Radio Manchester since 2021. And most recently, you can find her on national radio networks, BBC 5 Live and Talksport, or on her podcast, No Tippy Tappy Football. Her experience in both radio and TV broadcasting, as well as podcasting and more, means she has valuable insight into the football media industry. And we're also joined by commentator and writer Carolyn or Kaz Bullock, who is the voice of Manchester basketball for both their women's and men's teams. Caroline has provided expert play-by-play commentary for many Manchester teams, including Manchester Basketball, Manchester Mystics, Manchester Revolution wheelchair basketball team, but has also branched out and worked on games worldwide, including FIBA Africa, Eurobasket, and Team GB. Most recently, she has been heard on DAZN's coverage of Super League basketball, and this weekend she'll appear as an interviewer on the coverage of the Super League Cup final. Caroline also has experience in presenting and writing, and her dedication to basketball broadcast has earned her the 2023 Harry Ellington Volunteer of the Year Award, showing her relentless commitment to sports and basketball throughout her journey in the industry. Okay, let's not keep our speakers waiting too long and jump in with our first question about getting into the industry. So, Natalie, what inspired you to move into sports media, and how have your experiences so far, such as maybe those in your early career, shaped your current work and approach as a presenter?
Oh gosh, that's a really big question to start with.
I
So,
can repeat it if necessary.
I'd probably start by saying that I wasn't inspired to start to get into sports broadcasting. When I got into sports broadcasting, there was hardly any women at all
Mm.
working in sports on TV or on radio. And so it was never ever something that I thought that I could do. It was never something I dreamt about or aspired to because I just didn't. It's one of those you've got to see it to believe it, and I never saw it. I never thought that despite liking football my whole life, I had a season ticket in Manchester City when I was 15, been watching football with my dad my whole life. I never thought I could make a profession of talking about football. Um, it changed for me back in 2011 when I started working for Manchester City, doing their fan zone, just their pitch side stuff. And even that, I always say on my very first game that I worked for Manchester City, I went onto the pitch at half time and our own fans were shouting at me, "Get back in the kitchen." So it was, and that was our own fans.
Mm.
Um, and so it was just never something that I kind of aspired to making like the career that I have now. I'd say my early experiences, things like that, have made me more determined, probably more vocal, more headstrong to succeed and to. I mean, and it's definitely got more difficult. I'm sure we'll get onto it in recent years. But I'd say that my early kind of introduction into football has led me to the point now where I am really determined to succeed more than ever.
Definitely. And I definitely share that kind of not necessarily aspiring to the sports media world because of that lack of representation. I'm a lifelong football fan and I played football a lot growing up, and it was never a thought to me because I just never seen women working in sports media and I just had no idea it was possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely shaped a lot of young women's career aspirations, I'd say. And Caroline, you've worked on across basketball media in different capacities. Can you walk us through your journey, maybe touching upon how you transitioned in commentary and how it led to being heard on BBC Sport and DAZN?
Yeah, of course. So I started getting involved in sports media, in basketball media in 2020 when it was COVID hit, and obviously people had a lot of free time. I was working on a podcast with a friend, Darren Paul, who runs Focus Hoops and was writing some articles. We were doing player interviews and things. And then in the following year, the season for the WBBL, the Women's British Basketball League, as it was at the time, was going to stream games, and they'd be played behind closed doors. So if there was no streaming, there was nobody would see the games. And the coach of the team at the time in Manchester, Jeff Jones, asked me and a friend if we would stream and commentate the games. We said, yeah, of course. Had zero experience in doing this, had no idea what we were doing. And from there, kind of built up opportunities to stream games for teams in the local areas. I figured out how to do it and what to do. And that's where the commentary side of it came from. So I just kind of fell into it a bit, really picked it up, started doing it for the Mystics team, do it for some Division 1 teams, as you mentioned, the wheelchair basketball teams. And I've just been able to develop and say yes to opportunities that have come my way. And when the SLB and the Manchester basketball team this year asked me to do the games for Manchester basketball that are on DAZN, I jumped at the chance. Same with FIBA Africa and the games that I've done for GB at the Eurobasket qualifiers on the BBC. So it's kind of been a bit of a roller coaster journey, but it's been a very rewarding one, and it's really exciting to be involved.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds really exciting. I can imagine though starting in 2020 was a bit all over the place and a bit of a weird way to go into it, given with everything going on in lockdown.
It was definitely, and sometimes you sort of look back and think, I'm not really sure how we managed to do that or how we got through it. But sometimes, I don't know, Natalie might find the same, but sometimes when you're sort of thrown in at the deep end, you learn the most because you just have to, and the learning curve is just like this. It's through
Yeah.
through the roof, and you can take some of the most valuable lessons that you've had from those times and use it as a foundation to build ahead.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I couldn't agree more. Advice that I'll always give to people is to say yes to things and don't worry. If you don't know it yet, you will learn it. You can learn it. And I completely agree with Caroline. When you throw yourself into the deep end of things, that is when you really have the chance to grow and shine. And for similar for myself in COVID, that's when Manchester City started doing their Matchday live show because the fans couldn't go to the games. So I was one of the few privileged people that was allowed into the game, and we did the Matchday live show to try and connect fans to the games they weren't allowed at. And that's the show that I present now. But it's gone from on Zoom in our living rooms, going out to millions of Man City fans, to we have a purpose-built studio now, a studio as good as you'll get at any major broadcaster. And we do this studio show now that came from COVID, you know, one of the worst times in all our lives, sat in my living room on Zoom to where we are now.
It's really interesting how it's like you said, it was such a hard, difficult time for everyone across the world, but it's really nice to see that there's been some good come from it, and there's been a lot of opportunities that have opened up since then. Okay, so now on to our next question. It's a question for you both, as you've both worked in the industry for quite a while now and been sports fans for a very long time. So what progress would you say you've seen in women in sports media, across your career or maybe across your time as a fan? And where do you think there's still work to be done? Kaz, if we could start with you, please.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going in the right direction. When I started covering the Women's League back in 2020, there was very little coverage. Teams streaming didn't exist, and all the things that you'll see on social media, you know, short clips with interviews with players, just talking about their practice and things, that just wasn't really there, and it wasn't really as accessible as it is now. And I think the more people see those kind of, you know, short clips, the coverage that we've got, the more people, then it sort of inspires other people, other content creators and things, to get involved and do things like that. It's going in the right direction, but it still needs to be more widely covered and more represented in the media. We've seen the growth, you know, the Lionesses, the Bears in rugby with Ilona Maher getting in. You know, there's eyes on women's sport, and the coverage needs to reflect that as well, because people are saying, you know, we want this and we want to see the coverage.
And Natalie, have you noticed anything different maybe, or maybe similar in the progress that you've seen and in work that's left to be done?
Yeah, I suppose if I look at it more from a behind, not on the pitch, not on the field, from a kind of women working in sport aspect, again, it's come on leaps and bounds, but I still think we're a long way away from where we could and should be. I personally feel like we've gone backwards in the last few years. I think that is just a general rise in misogyny around the world. And I feel it much more in the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, than I have done in the years before that. I think it's also a rise of social media and faceless accounts, and people feeling like they are now okay to come out and say things, you know, that they would never say to your face.
Yes.
There's a long way to go. I do football reporting for Talksport, so travel around the grounds and, you know, give my updates on the game. And I was at Preston on Tuesday night, and in the whole press room there was 2 women. So whenever people say that women are taking over or women are getting hired more than men, I always go back to when I am in a press box at a football game, I am either the only woman or one of 2 or 3 women. So I think there's still a long way that we can go. Obviously, huge progression from 2011 and from when I was a little kid, when there was no one to look up to. Huge progression. I think it's wonderful that we've got women in some of the highest profile media jobs now, like Alex Scott, like Gabby Logan. You know, we're seeing Kelly Cates, you know, for those both to be presenting Matchday Live from next season, Match of the Day from next season is huge. So I think it's great that we've got prominent women in the media, but I still think there's a long way we can go.
Definitely. And a question to you both again. What role do you think that sports media organizations and these broadcasters, what role do they play in shaping the field for women in sports media?
Yeah.
I can start with Natalie.
I'll go first. Yeah, I'd say that they are pivotal to it. They are absolutely key to it. The major broadcasters have to keep hiring the most talented women that they can find, because the only way that we will progress and we will give more women opportunities, and the way we will silence critics, is being exceptional at our jobs. And also, when I say that, you have to be exceptional at your job. And we say this in a group of women, and I would say it to a group of men as well. A man can be average at his job and get by. As a woman, you have to be exceptional at your job. And again, you have to ignore everything that people say is going on. Diversity hire is a word that gets thrown at me a lot. Yeah, even if you're a diversity hire for one game, you do a rubbish job, then you are not coming back for the second game or the third game. So I would say, yeah, be exceptional, and the broadcasters have to keep hiring exceptional women.
It's definitely a lot of pressure that it puts on women working in the field to
Yeah.
be just on their top game
Yeah,
every
you can't
single
make one
second.
mistake, because your one mistake will get amplified.
Yeah, definitely. And Kaz, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think like Natalie's 100% correct with what she says, and we need to just keep seeing, a range of voices, diverse voices, people from different cultures, different backgrounds, to be representative. So people and young girls, and even older girls, older women, people can see what women can do and how they excel in those roles.
Definitely. And that kind of leads us on nicely to our next question. So like you were saying, Natalie, being a woman in many fields means facing specific challenges, whether that's underrepresentation or gender inequalities, or like you were saying about trolls and everyone feeling that they can say whatever they want behind a screen, as they're faceless and nameless. And yeah, sports media is definitely not exempt from this. So it would be great to give our audience a bit of an insight into, maybe more insight into these challenges so they can feel more prepared, whether they're just getting into the industry or progressing throughout. So starting with Natalie, you've spoken a bit already about the pressure to prove yourself early on in your career, but how would you say you navigated that? And how would you say you gained credibility in a space that often does try and undermine women's voices?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think right at the start, there was kind of maybe like a blind optimism from me, that without kind of really knowing the industry, and just, I was just having a good time, and I was just saying yes to things, and just, ignoring the odd, the comments. I'd say as my career progressed and it's become much more at the forefront, as a visible woman that works in the media, and I have a fairly large social media presence, it is a daily problem. It's something I could talk about all day, and I'd love to get into it with broadcasters and with people that have power, because I don't know what the solution is. But in terms of giving women an idea of what to expect, I get trolley comments every single day. I'm going to put out a little video on my social media tomorrow on International Women's Day of some of the trolling comments that I've had just in the last 2 weeks. Just so I think every now and again, although people always tell you ignore. It's easy to say that if it's not happening to you. But I think it's good to make people aware every now and again that this is a daily thing. So you get abusive comments, but that's abusive comments to one side. I'm talking about gender specific misogynistic comments, like, you only got this job because you're a woman, you're a diversity hire, the crude and sexual things that you can imagine they say, how you got your job. So that is a regular occurrence, and it's only getting worse. So I don't know what the solution is. I rack my brain about it all the time. It's not just me. I think it's a large proportion of visible women in the media. And you'll all know the people that I'm talking about, in terms of the spout the abuse on social media. How I cope with it, I recently deactivated my Twitter, which was a big step for me. But I am actually going to reactivate it next week, because it's Cheltenham week, and I also work in horse racing. And I loved the Cheltenham content that was on Twitter last year, and I don't want to miss out on it. But I've had my account deactivated for 2 or 3 months now. And then the only other way I deal with it is that I speak to people about it. So when it's particularly bad, and it was particularly bad a couple of weeks ago because I had a video that did well, and then it attracts attention. I just have to speak to my friends about it and tell them when it's getting me down, and tell them when I'm on the edge, or it feels like I'm on the edge. It's just having to speak to people. That's all I've got at the minute. And I wish I had something else that I could suggest or say as a what you can do, or a warning, but I've got nothing.
It's good that you have that support system that you can lean on in those times, though, because it's really important to talk about that and not bottle it all up and let it get to you in that way. And yeah, it's a really big shame that you had to deactivate your Twitter account. I think it's really good to show I think the public what the effect of those messages are. So people always like type them out and send them off without really thinking about the effect that it's going to have on not only the person that's receiving the messages, but everyone that's seeing it. And it's really important to shed light on it, I think. So it's great to hear that you're doing that. And yeah, I hope that they don't bring you down too much. And it's great to hear that you're going to reactivate your Twitter and kind of put them to the side and focus on
We'll
what
see
you
how it
want to
goes, yeah.
do and what you're passionate about instead. That's great to hear. And Kaz, you've dedicated so much time to raising the profile of basketball in Manchester. So what challenges did you face along the way? Because you were saying before how there was a total lack of accessibility and visibility to specifically women's basketball in Manchester. So yeah, what challenges did you face along the way, and how did you overcome them to create these amazing opportunities that you have now with major outlets?
Yeah, so the lack of information out there. So when you're trying to commentate or promote teams and players, if there's not really much information that you can go off, you've got to kind of find it yourself by going out and speaking to players and speaking to coaches, and getting that information and building it, which is part of why I want to be involved writing articles for Focus Hoops, so that if someone else comes along in 2 years' time and wants to commentate Davida Dale for Manchester, they can go, oh, she's had outrageous stats and she's done this, and it's kind of just been a case of trying to figure it out. I've got some really fantastic supportive friends and people that I know who have commentated before I started. I've gone out to them and said, what kind of tips have you got, or can you listen to what I'm doing and give me a bit of feedback specifically on how this works? And having people that you can go out and that can support you, and you're not just thinking, oh, I'm just on my own trying to do this and trying to help build something, it is really, really valuable. And I think, as Natalie said, we need to be exceptional. If you just do something, you've got to do something to the absolute best of your ability. And if you've done that, then there's nothing further that you can do, and you're in the right place and you're doing the right thing. But for me, yeah, information, just trying to get people kind of on the same page, because it's not always, because when it's a new thing, people don't always kind of embrace it as quickly as you'd like when you're trying to get somewhere, and just getting people used to it. So I always like to think now, women's in Division 1, Division 2 doesn't always get as much coverage. If we can set the standard now, if women's Division 1 teams are always streamed, young players coming up, if they're not, and the club's saying, oh, we're not going to do that, the players then are like, well, no, this is standard. We do this for the men, we should do it for the women. It should be equal. And you do see those differences, but it's kind of about trying to set a new standard, despite kind of the barriers and the challenges that you do come up against.
Definitely, it's great to hear that we can now provide like those broadcasters with accountability, because so many more videos and games are being streamed. And yeah, like you said, like using that as the standard and pushing for and asking for more, to make sure that everything's equal in sports, I think is really important. And with the lack of information that you said, and having to go and find the speakers and the coaches and the managers to find information on the players, I can imagine that made your job a lot harder and a lot more difficult than it needed to be. So it's great to hear that your writing work now will help people, and women in the future, to be able to have an archive that they can draw upon, to help them not have to dedicate so much of their time to stuff that should already exist.
Yeah, and that's what, if someone comes to me and said, oh, I've read an article, or I heard you talking about a player on commentary and I've been able to use it, I am absolutely over the moon, because that's what I would have loved to have when I was doing it. And I build my own massive Excel spreadsheet with all the players I've commentated on, so I can go back and pull out from it. And I'm happy to share that with people, because it is, especially in women's sports and especially some of the lower leagues as well, as there's just not information out there. And we've got awesome players, there's fantastic players, so the more people that know about it, the more articles, the more we can talk about it, it's good for them, and they deserve it.
Definitely. So we've spoken about this and touched on this a little bit already, but I know you're both very passionate and dedicated to championing women in sports and both in sports media as well. So it'd be great to talk a bit about what this means to you both. So starting with Kaz, can you tell me about why it's so important to champion women in sports and sports media, both in general in terms of its importance to everyone, but also to you personally?
Yeah, I think for women in sport, we know how important sport is in not just, teamwork. And if you're going to be an elite athlete, it sets you up for life. It gives you life skills and it lets you come across people that you might not normally in all walks of life. And I think that's so important, and especially for younger girls or for teenage girls, we know how many people drop out of sport, but the when you see them stay in, the confidence it gives people, and body confidence, body positivity. When people like Alona Mar will speak about it and challenge gender stereotypes, it's really important to build that confidence and have women and young girls be able to take that throughout their lives. So being involved in sport is just a brilliant thing in all aspects of it. And if people don't want to play sport, you can be a team manager, you can be a physio. There's so much behind the scenes as well that goes on in sports and in sports media. And for me personally, it's really important for me to be able to share the opportunities that I've been given with other people. So I'm in a position now where if I'm invited to do some events, like some of the Basketball England events, I can say I have some great people alongside me. Hannah Rolty, Hannah Shaw, Ishaniya. I would like to get them involved, have them doing analysis and interviews at halftime. And I'm privileged to be able to be in that position to say, yes, I want to get those people involved because they do fantastic work. And at the end of the day, when I stop doing this, when I stop writing, stop doing interviews, stop doing commentary, many years from now, if it's just me and I just step away and there's no one there, then I've not done my job. I want to bring people up with me, and I want to get as many women involved as possible and showcase the talents and just showcase, the brilliant work that they do and the women that are out there and that we just need to give a platform to.
That's really lovely to hear that it's so important to you to kind of share your contacts and your opportunities with others, and like you said, bring others up with you. I think that's so important to ensure like the longevity and the sustainability of women's in sports and in media. And it was really great to hear you touch on as well, like the benefits of women and girls participating in sport, whether that's in actual playing themselves or in behind the scenes roles. I know for myself, I played a lot of sports when I was younger, and I definitely felt the benefits of it. And I've seen the benefits of other people, and I think it's great that you touched on how it can, like the skills that can be developed, like teamwork and discipline, and self-management. Those can be used throughout any industry that you go into work on, or in your relationships and your family. So I think people often underestimate how important sports is, especially in your younger years, with developing those skills that you can use throughout the rest of your life. So it's really great to hear you touch on. And Natalie, so what does championing women in the industry mean to you, and what inspires you to be an advocate for women in this space?
I'd say I'd echo everything Caroline said about young women playing football and just how important it is, and all of the positive benefits and the self-confidence benefits that you get from playing sport when you're younger. And again, it goes back to the seeing it to believing it. I want there to be grown women that are playing basketball, football, rugby, everything that you can see, so that the little girls are seeing it and wanting to do it as well. And I think that's so unbelievably important. That's what, we have to champion women's sport for the next generations. For me as well, I'd say that I only became a full-time sports broadcaster 4 years ago. So, well, 4 years ago now. So I was doing the math. So it was just after COVID. So I was 37 when I became a full-time sports presenter. And I wish that I had had the opportunities or the confidence or the awareness to have done it when I was all of your ages. So it's not a regret, because again, it's my journey. I wish I'd done it sooner, because now that I'm in it, I absolutely love it, and I don't want any other women to wait until they're 37 years old to follow a dream of, or follow a career in doing this.
That's great to hear. And I think is a really important message for our audience. With, I think sometimes with the recent what's going on with grad roles and internships and work experiences, it can often feel like if you haven't been on it since you were 5 years old, you've already missed the boat and you're already way behind your peers. So I think that's a really great lesson to teach our audience, that it doesn't matter what age or what time you get started. It matters what you, well, I guess what you do with it and how you know, make the most of your opportunities and keep saying yes to opportunities and expanding what you can do and what others can do in the space, to make sure that, like I was saying earlier, about the longevity of women in sports media in general. And then touching on what you both said, I guess there was some, and in other questions and answers as well, you've mentioned some maybe moments where you were feeling less confident, and maybe felt a bit discouraged by, the lack of representation or the lack of information that you had to deal with. So, Natalie, do you have any moments that come to mind of when you felt discouraged and kind of how you picked yourself back up? I guess it's kind of related to what you spoke about before, but was there any other moments that came to mind?
Oh gosh. No, I mean, other than just the general, as we talked about, and I don't want my whole talk to be about sort of trolling and misogyny, but it has been a mainstay in in my career, certainly since I became full time at this as well. And I think that's probably the only moments where I've kind of felt down. I mean, in general, for the industry, you have to get used to hearing the word no, and you have to get a thick skin for rejection and not see it as rejection, because you're not good. I mean, I'm freelance, so you're not going to get every job that you go for. You're not going to get every job that you're suggested for. So I think maybe until you get used to that, that can feel like something that can bring you down, especially if you really wanted a job or you really wanted an opportunity and you didn't get it. I just try to see it as that what's meant for me is going to come to me, and I just have to keep working hard. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be in my career. I just have to keep my head down, keep working hard, keep taking the opportunities when they come, and just believe that what I want to achieve will come for me one day.
Definitely. And I love what you said around rejection and not taking it personally. I always tell myself rejection is redirection, and it just means
Definitely.
that there's something else that I meant to do instead. So I think that's a really great phrase. And with the phrase that you mentioned as well, whatever's meant for me will come to me. They're really great mantras to kind of keep in mind when you're going through challenges or obstacles in work. So
Yeah.
it's great to hear that. And Kaz, does anything pop up for you in terms of any moments that you felt maybe a bit discouraged in carrying on with your commentary work or your writing work? And how did you push through that?
Yeah, so that there's been games, especially early on, where I've been streaming myself. We've taken cameras and things down. I've commentated games. No one's heard it because the sound didn't work. So I spent an hour and a half talking, sound didn't work, and you come back and you think I've put so much effort into preparing my notes through doing the game, and just because technical issues, it doesn't work, and it's so disheartening. And as Natalie said, you've just got to take it as a learning experience. Okay, I prepared some great notes, I said some great things, only I heard it in my head, but I'll use that next time. And I think something that's so valuable is having someone that you can just vent to when things like that happen. Have a friend, phone them up and say, you will not believe what's just happened. I need to get this out. And then, okay, I'll focus on the next game, because it just happens and things will not go right all of the time. Things will go wrong. I've done interviews where the lights have gone off and we've had to do the rest of the interview in the dark, or fill because for 15 minutes because there's a leak in an indoor venue. You've just got to kind of take it on the chin and go, okay, this has happened. I can't do anything about it. It's out of my control, and move on. Because if you kind of let it get to you, it's not really representative of the whole experience. But it can be really hard especially when you've put a lot of work in, to sort of think, well, nothing's come of it. But yeah, vent to a friend and move on.
Yeah, it's great to use those past experiences and things that might not go on as learning points for future issues. And yeah, I guess it means that thinking on your feet and I guess creative problem solving become really important skills to build and to be able to use on. And it made me laugh what you're saying about tech issues. We're very blessed today for once to not have any tech issues today, which is great, but they do happen a lot. And you would think that in a field where tech is and technology is so important and is the only way that people at home are going to be able to hear and see what's going on, you would think it would always go right, but it still
Never
doesn't.
does.
It's
Yeah,
still tech
never
issues a
does.
lot.
We had a car drive over an internet cable once and cut us off the internet, which we just couldn't have planned for. We didn't expect that to happen, so lost our.
Yeah, it happened to us a couple of weeks ago. Two of our streams got cancelled because a fiber wire broke unexpectedly, and it was just going to take a couple of days to fix. And there's just nothing you can do about that, really. You just have to, I guess, yeah, like you said, like build that thick skin and just move on and use whatever notes you had and whatever ideas you had in future. Okay, great. So we've covered a lot of things today, and I'm sure our audience has been soaking it all up. So I have one last question for you both before we open up the Q&A. So starting with Natalie, this is a two-part question, but what advice would you give to young women that are wanting to break into sports media? And looking back, is there anything that you wish that you had known at the start of your career?
Yeah, I think my advice that I always give is if you want to do it, do it now. Start doing it now. Don't think you have to wait till your degree's over. Don't think you have to wait until you've passed this course or learned how to do this, or I can't until I've done something, I can't put myself out there. Start today. I always say that to everybody. And with the world of social media, use it to your advantage. It can be a really negative place, but it can also be a hugely positive place as well. So use it to your advantage. If you want to be on camera, if you want to be any kind of presenter, commentator, reporter, then start now. Get social media channels dedicated to whatever your passion is, women's sport, women's football, women's basketball, whatever niche you like, and start doing it now. Just videoing yourself just at the end of a game, giving a match report, or doing a preview. Do it now and get as much experience as you can. And even if it is just you sat to your phone, you're learning all the time. So do it, get as much experience as you can, in any way that you can, because that is so important as well. And I think I wish I had taken my social media more seriously when it first came out, and not just thought it was a place to put nice pictures of my holiday. Like it's such a valuable resource to get yourself out there, to get your name out there, to get experience, to become any kind of authentic voice in what you're passionate about. People will look at your social media channels, and my agent says to me that my social media channel is essentially my CV these days. So it's can't underestimate how important they are. Even if it's not your thing, even if you're not really into it, it's a really important place to be.
I think that's great advice. I think often we get into our heads a lot and put on our perfectionism hats and think that I can't do this because I don't exactly know how to do it perfectly yet. But like you said, the only way you're going to learn is by doing. And I think it's great as well. The more evidence you have to back up your skills and your passion, even if it's not perfect, it shows that you're putting in the work and you're putting in the effort and you want to grow and you want to learn. I think is really great. And yeah, we use that a lot with our Matchday Live team, and especially the on-screen team. They have all their clips that they've done in terms of presenting,
Brilliant.
commentary, that they can then use as their portfolio. I guess, like you were saying about your social media being your CV, and they have those examples to go off and use. So I think it's really great advice to just get started. Maybe it's a 2-minute clip, like you said, of like a match day report. That's better than nothing.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
great advice.
Yes.
And so, Carolyn, the same question for you. What advice would you give to young women who want to break into the industry? And again, is there anything you wish you'd knew before you got started that would have helped you in your early days?
Yeah, I'd just echo what Natalie said. Like, get involved and do it now. Figure out what your passion is. Do you want to be behind the scenes? Do you want to be in front of the camera? And get in touch with your local sports team. There's so much going on. They're always going to be happy if you say, "Can I write a match report? Can I come do some interviews?" they're not going to say no to free publicity and free press. To just get involved and start small. And there's no right or wrong way to do things. Whatever path that you want to take is going to be the right one for you. Just because somebody else is doing one thing doesn't mean that you need to be doing exactly the same thing. You can find your own way in it. And for commentary specifically, if anybody wants to get into that, I would suggest just watching games back on YouTube, recording yourself over them. You don't need to have a co-commentator, do it solo, and practice. Listen to yourself back. And I know it's awkward and I know it's cringy and we don't like listening to ourselves, but you have to do it if you want to get better and you want to improve. There's no other way to find out what works, what sounds right, what doesn't flow, and find your own style with it. You don't need to emulate anyone else. You find what works for you and find the way that you do it, because it's authentic and it comes through. And when you're passionate about it, it will come through. You can't kind of try and fake it and copy someone else. So yeah, and practice, prepare for commentary. And something I wish I'd known, it's not going to go right 100% of the time, because I did struggle to kind of accept that, but it's not. And as I said before, things will go wrong, but it just helps build you up, and you know how to deal with things when things go wrong. And it's not a big deal, because you've done it, you've been through it before. In fact, you've probably been through the most difficult times at the start of your career when you're starting things out, so that when something smaller happens, you're like, this is absolutely fine. I've dealt with lots of this. So yeah, it's not going to be smooth, but just learn from it, take it on board.
It's great to hear. And I think, yeah, we always overestimate how much people remember things that go wrong. Most of the time they might laugh about it for a minute or two, but by the next day they will not remember. And likely you won't as well if you don't pay active attention to it. It will just be in the past and something you can learn from instead. And I really agree with what you were saying around there's no right or wrong path. I think oftentimes when we're in our early career or at the start of a new industry, we're told to kind of try and emulate the experts that are already there, but sometimes that just doesn't work for you because of maybe your individual differences or your skills at the time. And it's really important to, like you were saying, carve out your own path. And I think that as well makes you be able to bring like a unique value to what you're doing that no one else does have, because you're being your authentic self and you're not trying to copy what someone else is doing or trying to be the next Alex Scott, let's say, and just doing what feels right for you. And that will inevitably in the long run be a lot more beneficial for you and your skills and your career. That's great to hear. So thank you so much to our panelists for sharing their experiences and their insights and all their advice today. It's been much, much, much appreciated, and it's been a really enjoyable discussion as well. I definitely feel like I've learned a lot of different things. So now we have time for some questions. We've got some on the chat, and we've got some from some of our Matchday Live team members that weren't able to make it today. So let's start off with our first question. It's from Jessica. So Jessica says, what experience would you recommend to get to build a career in sports media? I guess this partially touches upon what we were talking about just get started, contact your local sports teams, just pick up your phone and start recording yourself. But Natalie and Kaz, do you have anything to add to what you were saying earlier in terms of building more experience?
Yeah, I'd say just echoing what Caroline said, but on reporting. So as I said, I do football reporting for Talksport. You could be practicing that every day now. If you want to be a football reporter or reporter of any sport, it is a very specific skill. So what I would say, if that is something that anybody here is interested in, when I'm reporting into Talksport and they have a commentary on, say for Tuesday night, it was the commentary of PSV versus Arsenal. I'm sat at Preston doing the goal updates. It was 0-0, by the way. It was 7-1 at Arsenal. That's what I was listening to, but it was 0-0 at the game that I was at. But you still have to do a before the game, a team news section, updates during the game if there's any goals or if anything interesting has happened, a halftime report, full-time report. And these match updates are 10 to 15 seconds long. So I would challenge anybody that thinks that this is something they would like to do to watch a game and then try and tell yourself and record it into your phone, just on the voice notes of your phone, telling the viewers or telling yourself what you've just seen in the last 20 minutes in 10 to 15 seconds. So my halftime report at Preston the other day, because it was going into the Arsenal commentary, that also had to be 15 seconds. Usually they might give you 30, but trying to sum up an entire 45 minutes of football in 10 to 15 seconds is a really specific skill. And you could be doing that now, just sat in your living room, whatever game, whatever sport you're watching, you could be practicing that at home now and get into that kind of rhythm of knowing how to be very concise with your words. But also I'd say, Jessica, it depends what part of the sports media industry you want to get into. Obviously, I'm coming at it from a front of camera person, in which my advice, like I said, about the social media is starting now, starting to record yourself. But I love Caroline's advice as well about contacting local sports clubs. So if it was football you're interested in, I'd be looking at the non-league teams that live near, that are based around you, the lower division teams that are based around you, and seeing how you could get involved with them, finding the head of media. There's probably one person that does 5 jobs at that, a volunteer that does 10 jobs at that level, exactly like Caroline says, that would love and someone to come in and help do their social media on match days. So I think that's a great piece of advice. But it would be, if you want to add in a game, what is the specific area, we can try and tailor that.
Yeah, definitely. I'll wait for her message. We can have a look at the end. But Kaz, did you have anything to add on what you said earlier and what Natalie has just said?
Yeah, I'd say as well, take advantage of networking and networking groups, because there's loads out there. I know networking can always sound like a bit of a scary prospect and a bit daunting, but it's not. It's just meeting people, like-minded people. There's some great things out there, especially, through LinkedIn. There's the Women's Sports Collective that Sue Anstice has set up, that will put on talks and events. And it's a great chance to meet people that you can chat to if they've got a specific area of that you're interested in, that can share their expertise, and loads of people are willing to do that. So reach out to people. You can do it through social media or some of the more structured networking groups.
Great. I'm actually a part of the Women in Sport Collective. I love being on the WhatsApp chats and seeing all the opportunities that do come up. So I would say that's definitely great advice to join a networking or a network like similar to that. Okay, so our next question is from Imogen, who says, do you think it's more important to build on a specific skill or better to build a range of skills? So I guess it's that long debate around specialism versus generalism. Kaz, would you like to touch upon this?
I think it probably depends kind of what you're wanting to get out of it. So like for me specifically, I obviously do commentary, interviews, and write articles. So I'm doing a little bit of everything. But to have one specific skill that you can do really, really well, I think it is very important. But again, it would depend kind of what roles you're looking at. Because as well, if you're covering different sports, it's a real skill to be able to cover a netball game, then a football game, and a cricket game, and floorball, to be able to adapt between them. Or if you're presenting to introduce the sports, or if you've got a really specific area that you're only interested in, Norwegian football or something. I think it's good to be able to do both, but again, kind of depending on the path that you want to take would kind of depend on that.
Yes, definitely. And Natalie, I feel like most of your work is more presenting work, but whether that's on different formats, whether that's on the podcast or the Matchday Live program or on radio. But would you say, from your own experience, what would you say was more important, building on specific skills or more generalism?
You have to have a general set of skills. That's 100%. It's great if you've got something you're particularly passionate about, like commentating or presenting. So presenting is my number one skill, but you have to have a range of skills. In this cost-cutting world that we live in, a company wants you to be able to do a variety of jobs. So when I had the sports show on BBC Radio Manchester, which I left a couple of years ago, because I couldn't juggle the hours and the single parenting side of it. But you were all local radio has made everybody presenter producers. So anybody working across BBC local radio that used to be a presenter is now a presenter producer, which means that you also need to be able to write your own scripts, your own in notes. You also they're expected now to edit their own interviews. So the presenter of your local BBC radio station is setting up interviews, writing their own scripts, editing the interviews, driving the desk, doing the presenting. The BBC will not hire you if you can only present. So you have to have a broad range of skills. And then again, I say presenting is my number one passion, but I'm a football reporter. I host a podcast, everything with football reporting. I do all of the, the writing for that, for the team notes and everything. And then an example I could give you as well at Manchester City. So the producers that work on the Matchday Live show that I present. So our show gets an average 2.5 million viewers per show. That's across all of Manchester City's free social media platforms. There is a large team that works behind the scenes, and they are either senior producers, or assistant producers. And their jobs will cover, they'll be on the camera one game, they'll be on the editing one game, they'll be on the graphics one game. One game they might be the producer, one game they might be the director. So you're only going to get a job at Manchester City if you can do all of those things. So I cannot stress enough, you have to have a range of skills.
I think that's really important to kind of give basis as to why it's so important to try lots of different things. And yeah, help you to build up a lot of generalism skills and be a bit more multifaceted, which, like you said, is very in demand at the moment. With our cost-cutting industry and mindset at the moment. Okay, great. On to our next question from Ellie. Do you think it's important to build your social media around your niche or branch out to other sports as well? Oh, that's an interesting one. Natalie, could we start with you, please?
I think that your social media should always be authentic. It should always be 100% authentic to you. Don't pretend that you like rugby if you don't like rugby, just because you think you should be posting about everything. The most important thing about your social media should be authentic and what you're really passionate about. So my niche, although I'm trying to break out of my niche now to get into wider presenting, but say my niche is Manchester City, my social media has been dominated by Manchester City things over the last few years. But what I realized about a year ago is that I'm really passionate about live sport, all live sport. I watch so much live sport and I wasn't posting about it. So it was authentic for me to then start posting about all of the other live sports that I watch as well. So I think that is the key thing to it.
Definitely. And I think it definitely comes across when you are passionate about something and when you're not so passionate about something. And people will always be able to tell that, and they're always going to focus in more on the content that you are clearly more passionate about, because it just resonates with people more and it's more exciting to watch and it feels more real. So I think that's really great advice. And Kaz, did you have anything to add on that as well? You're very active on your social medias too.
Yeah, and I think Natalie covered it really. I only cover basketball. I love watching other sports, but I wouldn't attempt to commentate a football game. I wouldn't know what was going on to say. But yeah, be authentic, and your passion comes through. You can tell when people are passionate about it. It's great to be involved in other sports. If there's a range of sports you like, that's brilliant. But yeah, don't do anything that's not authentic to you.
Definitely agree with both of that. I think we've got a comment from the YouTube stream as well. So it says, "Hi, thank you for a great session so far. Upon beginning to receive opportunities, especially at the beginning of your career, how would you combat the internal sense of imposter syndrome, especially with the constant comments about being a diversity hire and woke culture?" So they say they really struggle with feeling as though they equally deserve the same opportunities as their male peers, especially when they've earned them. So I guess the question is more focused on combating imposter syndrome, especially with what you were saying, Natalie, around the comments that were made maybe about the new Match of the Day host about being a diversity hire, or woke culture's gone mad, or all of the nice comments that the trolls like to leave. So how would you deal with that sense of imposter syndrome when you're facing all of these negative views, I guess?
So talking about Alona Mayer, I saw an interview she did where they asked her about imposter syndrome, and she went, "I don't know what that is. I don't have
I saw that too.
syndrome." And I watched that and I thought, "Oh my God, that's incredible," because I have massive imposter syndrome. So I love her. I love that she said that. I have huge imposter syndrome constantly. I got a really good job. My agent phoned me the other day. I've got a really good job coming up that I'm really excited about. And when he told me, the first thing I said is, "Why? why have they picked me? And he was laughing. So I don't know is the answer. I don't know how you get rid of imposter syndrome. I'd love to. What I do know though is that I know that I have a sense of how hard that I work, how I really believe how talented I am at my job. And I really believe that I do my job very, very well. And that partly comes from the amount of preparation that I do, how dedicated I have been to developing this craft and taking opportunities and throwing myself into it. So I think whenever I've got imposter syndrome, I'm probably actually thinking about it. That's what I go back on. I think, no, you did 8 hours prep for this. You know every single detail about every single player. How can you have imposter syndrome because you've done the work for this? So I think that's it. And the trolls, it depends what day you catch me on. Honestly, if I'm a single parent, if my son's been up all night, then and the next day I read a trolley comment, it's going to get to me more than if life has been wonderful that week. So yes, I don't know. I think that's how I handle it, but I'd also love tips from anybody else.
I think kind of what you touched upon there about like when you're not having such a good day, it will get to you more. So maybe focusing on, the whole concept of filling up your own cup and making time to do those things that fill up your cup and make you feel better about your day. That just helps you to build a thick skin. So if something does come at you, you feel a little bit more able to handle it than on maybe a not so good day.
Definitely.
And Kaz, is this anything you relate to as well? Do you ever feel any imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I'd say just believe in yourself. Like if you know your material and you know what you're doing, you're in the right place and you're doing the right thing. And yeah, there's been times when I've thought, oh, can I do this? And you do it, and you're like, of course I can do this. I'm great. I'm great at what I do. I'm very, very good at commentating. And I think it's important to surround yourself with the right people and look for validation in the right places. Don't look for feedback in the wrong places. You don't want someone online is not going to warrant you paying attention to their feedback like that. People that you can trust and people in your circle, people in the industry that know what they're doing. I have fantastic messages from players and parents of players saying, I love listening to your commentary. How you talked about my son or my daughter, and it really made them kind of shine, and it gives the players a boost. So for me, messages like that, that validates what I'm doing and the reason I'm doing it. So anytime I think, oh, should I be doing this, I think back to those comments and the people that I trust, and that tell me, yes, you're doing a brilliant job. So it's difficult, but believe in yourself. You're doing it for a reason, and yeah.
I think it's definitely a really great idea to have some sort of feedback bank. My mum always tells me have a document and put all the positive feedbacks points you get into it. So when you're having one of those wobbly moments, you can read through and remind yourself, yeah, I am actually really great at what I do, and I do a good job and people like what I do. And being able to read that when you're not feeling so confident or when you're feeling imposter syndrome is just a life, and it's so useful to just build up that confidence that you might have lost for temporarily. And we've just got a follow-up question from Jessica, who's put in about what the area she is specifically interested in, which is football presenting. So she says that she'd love to present live, like yourself, Natalie, doing Matchday live, and also digital presenting for social media. Radio is also something that she would love to explore more. She loves the entertainment and education value it has for the younger audiences. So given that Jessica's most interested in football presenting and radio and digital presenting, Natalie, does that make it a bit easier for you to provide any more guidance in terms of what experience she can build on now?
100%. It just goes back to the social media side of it.
Yeah.
You want to have an Instagram and you want to have a TikTok. I would actually focus on TikTok if I was starting now, because obviously once you get to the 10,000 followers, you start making money off the back of it. If it doesn't need to be, it's whoever you support, or again, what your niche is could be where you start. If you're a Manchester City fan, I'd probably start on the women's team because there's less coverage than that. And I'd do previews and I'd do match reports. Also, you could do a YouTube channel as well. And through the three of those, you'll be learning how to edit your own videos, add your own graphics, do your own captions, do your own hooks. You'll learn so much, and keep doing it. Even if you've got 10 followers, even if you've got 20 followers, even if you get 5 views, keep doing it, keep looking to improve the quality of those videos. Because if you ever go to apply for a job in social media, the first thing they're going to do is look at your social media. And if you haven't got a social media, they've got no reason to employ you. You know, even if you've got the best degree in the world, and you know, if you've not got social media and you want to work in that. So that would be my 100% focus. TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and just do it. Start now. And I saw somebody else wrote, asked about starting a podcast. Do it. What's stopping you starting a podcast? Don't spend a lot of money on it. You can do it with a really cheap microphone in your house. There's free platforms like Buzzsprout that allows you to put podcasts out there. Do it. There's nothing stopping anybody in the world creating a podcast right now. Just don't spend any money on it to start with, other than a very cheap microphone, and just understand what you're getting. Like the time. Don't say you're going to do 3 episodes a week to start with. Do 1 episode a week, or 1 episode after every game maximum. And again, just do it. And with a podcast, film yourself on your phone. We all own a phone. Film yourself on the phone and put the clips on your social media.
Great advice. Yeah, using your social media as a CV and a portfolio is so important. It's definitely helped me land jobs in social media and marketing myself as well. So it's great advice. I think that's all we have time for in terms of questions now. But thank you so much again to our amazing panelists, Natalie and Kaz, for your time today and for all your passion and your wisdom. Thank you to our audience for watching and participating and your great questions. Thank you to MMU Sport and Rise and Manchester Basketball for their help in putting this talk together today, and to Verity and Connor for also their production assistance today, and to Sam, of course, for helping me to organise today's event and always finding ways to get students exposed to the industry and industry experts. So if today's talk has supercharged your interest and passion for pursuing sports media, that's great. That's what we aim for. And there's lots of opportunities you can get involved in. Natalie and Kaz both touched upon reaching out to your local sports teams or just getting started on your own. But not so subtle plug for Matchday Live here. We obviously support the technical broadcast team for Manchester Basketball with the women's team, and there's a few more games left in the season that you can help out with. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, just email matchdaylive@mmu.ac.uk or give us a message on Instagram. And for all 2nd and 3rd years, Matchday Live will be officially back in the next academic year. So give us an email too if you want to register your interest early. And finally, Manchester Basketball are offering free tickets to everyone for their game tomorrow against Nottingham Wildcats. If you use the code IWD 2025, you get 100% off. And Kaz will be working this game as well, which is super exciting. So have a look at their social media or their website. So you can find Kaz tomorrow at her working at the game for Manchester Basketball, and you can find Natalie on Instagram at Natalie Pike Presenter or on her podcast No Tippy Tappy Football. So thank you again to everyone in the audience for watching, and to our amazing speakers. We really appreciate you coming and sharing your wisdom today. So thank you, everybody, and see you later.
Bye.